Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of Movie Dudes. I'm Phil,
I'm Alec.
and today is a very special episode because not only is it our new year, our first episode of 2022, it's also our first episode where we talk about more than one movie. Because today we're going to be talking about Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And
yeah.
I think we should I think we should explain something before we go
Oh
into
yeah,
I guess the movies.
yeah. So, all right.
So this episode was originally going to come out on New Year's
Yep.
on New Year's Eve. But we were both kind of hit with something in the fact that a day
Yeah.
after Christmas, I started feeling a little sick, so I went and got a COVID test, and it came back positive. So I was kind of down and out for a few days, and then on the 3rd of January, I was like, all right, you know what, I'm feeling up to record an episode. So I messaged Phil, and it turns out that he got sick as well.
Yeah, I got like the most sick I've been in years. Like I was feeling horrible just in my sleep, like not even being able to sleep. Then I just got the message from Alec being like, "Hey man, want to record?" And I was like, "For fuck's sake, really?" So yeah.
Yeah, it definitely it ended up being a moment where I was like, well, I guess we're kind of forced to take a little bit of a vacation now.
Yeah.
But now we're back. Now we're
Yeah.
back to talk about these movies finally.
So
So I guess yeah, let's get into it.
yeah. So well, I guess we should just start with the first one. So the first movie, Spider-Man, obviously directed by Sam Raimi, released in 2002, tells I'm not gonna go too much into like the synopsis of the movie because I feel like that's a movie that everyone knows, that everyone has seen, and it's Peter Parker, who's a nerdy teenager in high school, who gets bitten by a radioactive spider and who gets the power of a spider and who becomes a superhero, our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, who saves the streets of New York from bad people. And yeah, so obviously the first film is focused on his best friend's father, Norman Osborn, played by the amazing Willem Dafoe, who in this movie becomes the dangerous villain, the Green Goblin, who just like basically any Marvel superhero, just tries to destroy New York City, and Spider-Man tries to save him, and isn't really that much. It's not a very complicated story, but it's a really good one though.
And that's
Yeah.
I would say, like, I guess I would probably say this is my favorite of the trilogy,
Really?
mainly because I think so. Yeah, I mean, I think it's the most simple in terms of like all the
Yeah.
stuff that's going on, and plus, Willem Dafoe just makes this movie an absolute ride from beginning to
Oh,
end.
yeah. Oh,
I do not think there's a single thing that he does wrong in this movie. It is so good. But I guess, yeah, I guess to kind of keep our hold on the story a little bit, let's kind of, or on this series a little bit, let's kind of talk about I guess the each main, or I guess each main player. So like we got
Right.
Spider-Man, Peter Parker. We have his uncle and aunt, Uncle Ben and Aunt May, who Uncle Ben is obviously, if you know anything about Spider-Man, is the character who
Yeah.
dies and
Yeah.
basically serves as like the catalyst for Peter's heroic awakening. I don't know how else to say it.
Uncle Ben is the kind of character that his importance to the story is a lot bigger than his screen time. That's what I'm gonna say.
That's very, very accurate. And Aunt May, obviously, she doesn't really do a lot in this one, but she's there.
No, yeah. She's the best. She's the sweetest. I love her.
We have Mary Jane Watson,
Mm-hmm.
the love interest that Peter has been interested in since he was young,
Yeah.
and who is kind of out of his league, I guess so to say. Um, then we have Peter's best friend, Harry Osborn, played by James Franco, uh,
Mm-hmm.
who is kind of like the he's kind of the rich kid, but he's also kind of like he's kind of the jealous type, as we'll
Yeah.
see going on through that series. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and the obviously the last main player in this movie that we already mentioned is Willem Dafoe as Norman Osborn. Um, so I don't know. I don't know. I think a synopsis would probably be best, so we can call back to certain things
Mm-hmm.
in context. So, the movie starts with Peter going on a class trip with his classmates, including Harry and MJ. And they go to this what is it? Is it like a
Uh,
research facility?
I thought it was a museum that also did research, like something like that.
I guess it could be.
Yeah.
That would make sense. We'll go with that for now. It's not
Mm-hmm.
really important.
Yeah.
But they're showcasing this spider research that they're doing, and Peter is like a photographer for the school newspaper. So he asks MJ if he can take a picture of her, and while he's taking a picture of her, they notice that one of the experimental spiders is missing from the display case. And while he's taking that picture, the spider, comes down from its web and bites him. And he gets his he starts to feel a little sick. So after the field trip, he just goes home, lays down, and wakes up, and he doesn't need glasses anymore. He's all strong. And he goes to school, and the bully, Flash Thompson, tries to
Yeah.
tries to start stuff with him, and for the first or I guess for the first time we see Peter we see Peter fight a guy and win, uh, which kind of gives him an idea like what he like. Oh yeah, that's this in the lunchroom scene. Before that, he somehow
Yeah.
shoots a web out of his hand or out of his wrist.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so this he starts to kind of notice all these different changes that he's been having, and so he notices, or he I think he's talking to Mary Jane or something. And there's something about like how her boyfriend, who is also Flash Thompson, got a new car. And so Peter's like, I gotta get a new car.
Yeah.
So he looks at the newspaper and sees an ad that you can get. Was it how much was it? Like $3,000 or something?
Yeah, I think
Uh,
so. Yeah.
for appearing, or for if you're able to defeat a wrestler in this independent like wrestling
Yeah.
event. So Peter designs a costume and goes as what he calls the what does he call himself?
He calls himself the what is it? Like the human spider, or
Yeah, the
something like
human
that.
spider.
Yeah.
And yeah, like he goes out and he's like, introduce me as the human spider. He's like, and the announcer's like, no, that sucks. Introducing
Yeah.
Spider-Man. And then he comes out, and obviously there's the amazing Macho Man Randy Savage
Mm-hmm.
as Bonesaw, and
That's a great name.
he defeats him, and then
Yep.
he goes to get his money from the wrestling guy, and the wrestling guy's like, nah, here's $100. And Peter is mad, and he leaves. But as he's leaving, a guy walks into the office and robs it of all the money. And the robber runs out towards where Peter is, and Peter could easily stop him, but he doesn't. He lets him pass right by and go into the elevator, which is a decision that will have a lot of effects as Peter leaves the wrestling event to see that same robber shot and killed his Uncle Ben. That he could have stopped. He could have prevented that whole thing. So he goes out and beats up the robber and basically has his first moment as Spider-Man. And then we get a bit of I believe we get a bit of a time skip from, it's the end of high school. They graduated. Peter made like a full Spider-Man suit. And then all the stuff with while this has been happening, we've been getting glimpses of Norman Osborn and his project of this like super serum for the military that'll like make people stronger. And so the army comes by and goes, all right, Norman, we're going to cut your funding if you don't show us results within like the next month. So that night, Norman decides to take a bit of that serum. He decides to be the first human test subject, which kills him. It brings him back to life. And he lashes out, kills his assistant, and escapes into the night. And then we see him a little bit later, and he's kind of a little bit like he's just acting a little normal, but also a little bit on edge. Until he notices that a voice has been speaking to him. That would be like his alternate personality of the Goblin. And so there's a bit of like, I guess a bit of balancing here, where it's like Peter is doing his regular life stuff while also living with Harry, hanging out with MJ, and getting to know Norman Osborn a bit. And so they kind of go back and forth with that until Norman starts to go out into the world on a glider he built in a suit that he built as, the Green Goblin, causing, terror. He destroys this Oscorp sponsored festival that's going on in like is it Times Square? I don't think it is. Is it? It might be.
I mean, I've never been to New York, so I couldn't tell you.
I don't think it is. I think it's just some regular like park area.
Yeah.
But there's like buildings, New York stuff.
Yeah.
So he blows up, or like he, goes through all of that. Spider-Man saves MJ from a bomb, or like a crumbling building, and Green Goblin takes notice of Spider-Man, and so he there's like a little bit of just kind of regular stuff that happens. Peter saves MJ again, or Peter as Spider-Man saves MJ again, and they kiss. Then Norman as Goblin decides to trap Spider-Man, and he scratches him. He gives him like a scratch on his arm. And then later, I think it's later that day, Norman is coming over to Harry and Peter's place for Thanksgiving, is it?
Yep.
Yeah, Thanksgiving. So he's coming over for Thanksgiving, and he notices the scratch on Peter's arm that basically confirms to him that, Peter's Spider-Man. And then comes the moment where Goblin decides to offer Spider-Man. He's like, we can take down all of this by ourselves, or they'll turn on you, Spider-Man. Peter doesn't listen and just continues, or he rejects the offer and continues to fight Goblin until Goblin decides to lash out against Peter's family since he knows who he is now. So he blows up the top of Aunt May's house, injuring her. putting her in the hospital, and he kidnaps Mary Jane, and basically forces a showdown between him and Spider-Man. To which Spider-Man saves MJ. He saves like everybody else that Goblin is about to kill with his actions, and then he corners Goblin in this like rundown building. And at this point, Goblin is kind of becoming a little unstable. He keeps flipping between Norman and Goblin personalities until Goblin decides to surprise attack Spider-Man. But, Spider-Man has his little spider sense and jumps at the last minute that Goblin sends his glider towards him instead of stabbing Spider-Man, killing himself in the process. And all that all that Norman says before he dies is, "Don't tell Harry," before he collapses on his glider. So Spider-Man brings Norman back to his home and leaves him on a couch. But right before he leaves, Harry sees Spider-Man drop off Norman, and since Peter isn't about to reveal himself to Harry, Harry starts to believe that Spider-Man killed Norman. So that whole thing happens. They have a funeral for Norman, where MJ confesses to Peter that she loves him, but Peter, seeing seeing the life of responsibility as one not fit for love, decides to say no to MJ and continue with his life as Spider-Man uninterrupted. And that is the end of the first movie.
Yep.
So let's see. What did you have? Do you have any notes for this one?
Yeah, I had a couple. Yeah. Well, so the thing is, so this is a film that I grew up watching. Like I've seen it a million times as a kid, and it's actually been a pretty long time since I actually saw it. And I realized how there's a lot of stuff that I forgot, and a lot of stuff that I've never really like. There's a lot of scenes that I would skip, like especially the dialogue scenes. I just wanted to watch the fight scenes. And so there's a couple of stuff that I realized. One of the things not related to the story, but that kind of surprised me, is how it takes 1 hour until you see Spider-Man, which I thought was really weird. Like, honestly, the first half of the film is just about Peter and it's not Spider-Man, which I thought was really weird. It really surprised me. But besides that, let me look at my notes. Hold on. There is the thing. I saw already a lot of people talking about that. It's not something they realize when you're a kid, but like, it's really funny how none of the actors look like high schoolers.
Oh no, yeah, I was definitely on the look for that this time, because I had heard about it online, and I'm like, okay, what's the deal with this? Because I grew up watching the Raimi trilogy, but right. I remember only watching it a couple of times all the way through when I was a kid. So this time was almost really like me going into this movie completely blind, because I just I remembered that little about it. But yeah, that was something I was on the lookout for. But something I guess I was pleasantly surprised by was that, like, I was kind of the opposite with those dialogue scenes, in that I actually really enjoyed pretty much all of this movie. I don't think there's a single part of it that I wish was, too different. Obviously, a lot of it's cheesy. The CG hasn't aged as you would hope. But it's I think out of all of these, I think this is the one that works the best, and I'll get into what I mean more later. But I enjoyed this one a lot more than I thought I would.
Well, all right, I'm gonna have to say, like, I think it's really funny that you say that, because I think this one might actually be my least favorite of the trilogy.
Ooh, okay.
So yeah. but again, we'll talk about that later. But
Right.
yeah. Hold on, let me just see if I have anything else. There's a lot of stuff. Well, oh yeah, one thing that I noticed is for the entire trilogy, but mainly for this one, is just how like I never really realized just how amazing the music is. Like
Oh yeah, it's incredible.
I think
It's a great great soundtrack.
I think this might be Danny Elfman's best work. It's especially for the.
I would say
yeah,
it's definitely among his greatest
yeah.
work.
Like
Like
especially
it's I don't know if I'd say it's definitively the best, but it's definitely up there.
yeah, it's up there with like Nightmare Before Christmas and some other Tim Burton
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
But especially the main theme, like at the beginning, is just first of all, like the nostalgia I feel from that is huge. But just in general, I love it so much, and it's honestly I feel like this is in terms of soundtrack. Again, this is my least favorite. I feel like the other ones have a better soundtrack, but this one is already so good. Uh, yeah.
I'm trying to think of like I would say this is the one uh and obviously once we get into like the other two movies I'll talk about it more, but this is the one I feel where the romance is handled the best.
Yep, I'm gonna have to agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a bit. But I would this I guess a nitpick that I wrote down was there's a lot of moments where like I don't know. I hate to be this person, but just like looking at it logically, there's a lot of moments where it's like, well, how did Peter not reveal himself there? That was really almost like it's
Oh
almost the
yeah.
moment of like,
Oh yeah.
how did you not see that? Or like, but
For sure.
I
For
mean,
sure.
it's you can kind of suspend your disbelief when watching these ones, and I think that's fine.
Yeah. I mean, logically, like
That's
if this happened in real life, like everyone would have figured out that Peter is Spider-Man really fast. Like especially,
well, see,
yeah,
that's how I feel with
yeah,
like that's how I would usually think about it. But like, I mean, with the other ones, like with the Marvel trilogy, with Spider-Verse, I'm able to go like, okay, I can kind of think like I understand that people might not figure it out, or like obviously like the people close to him probably would, but just some regular person probably wouldn't. Nah, there's a lot of moments where it's like almost like, oh, how did the whole world not figure that out?
yeah,
Especially considering this is, uh, you know, especially considering that there's only one time in the entire like Spider-Man, Spider-Man cinematic universe where his identity was revealed to the public. So
right,
there's that. But that's really all I had to say on this one.
yeah.
If you had anything else to add.
Let me hold on. Let me look at my notes. I really like I really like the comedy in this one, but that's something that I mainly want to talk about for the other movies. Um, because I have got a lot of stuff to say about that specifically. But I do like the Peter Parker in this particular movie has a sort of an awkwardness that is there in the other movies, but not quite as present, especially everything
Oh
related to
yeah.
Mary Jane. There's, I mean, he's awkward and he's not he doesn't have the type of personality that you'd necessarily expect from a superhero, but that makes him like much more relatable, and I really like that.
Yeah, I think Tobey Maguire captures something that the other two live action Spider-Man just didn't for me, was that like
Yeah.
like it's the awkwardness of being like or it's Peter Parker's nerdy awkwardness. Like I think Tom Holland did a fine job, but I couldn't really see it in him. Andrew Garfield is just too handsome to be a nerd character, I think.
Yeah, it's like
But
yeah.
I think Toby nails it in this one.
Yeah. It's no, it is true how like if Tom Holland or Andrew Garfield actually were Spider-Man, like they wouldn't be like they wouldn't be as nerdy or awkward. And no, yeah,
Yeah.
it's honestly I don't know. I feel like with Tom Holland and Andrew Garfield, I don't really see that much of the like nerdy scientist side. But I do definitely see it with well, maybe a bit more with Tom Holland, but not with Andrew Garfield. But I do see it more with Tobey Maguire.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's kind of all I had.
Yeah, honestly, looking at my notes, look at my notes. Most of the stuff that I that I wrote was related to like nostalgia and like, oh my god, I remember the scene is so good. Like the first web shooting scene. It's just the scene where he's like trying to figure out how to do like web shooting. It's so good. Where he just jumps over the buildings.
Like, I've always throughout my entire life I've always had like well like with since I've seen these movies, like I obviously said I couldn't really remember a whole lot of them, but you know the first web shooting scene and the goblin fight at the end have always stuck in my mind because they're so good.
Yeah. Yeah, no, a lot of it is either stuff like that or stuff that I think is a bit incoherent. Like one of the last note that I wrote was, wait, did he really friend zone Mary Jane? Did he actually do that? What an idiot.
It's a thing. I'll say this. I think that part makes sense.
Yeah.
For this movie. I think if this movie stood on its own and there was never any other Spider-Man movies in this series, that decision would really work. But as we see, it gets a little funny. But yeah.
Yeah.
Is there let's see. Yeah, that's all I had. So I guess moving on. Or do you have anything else?
Nah. I said that the CGI looks pretty plasticky, but that's it. Like, I mean, it's 2002. What do you want to do?
Yeah, it's definitely noticeable at a lot of parts, but you know.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? It's the time it was made.
It's honestly for 2002, it's good.
Oh yeah, no, there's a lot of moments where like I noticed that it was a little bit weird, but like I didn't really mind it because it's like, you know, it's not that bad.
Yeah, it's plasticky, but it's not ugly.
Yeah, I think that works. That's a great way to say that. Like it's a bit plasticky and a little strange, but it's not. It works. So
yeah.
Spider-Man 2, released in 2004. Also Sam Raimi. This time we focus on the villain Dr. Octopus, played by Alfred Molina. And I don't think there's any more characters introduced in this one, other than Doc Ock himself.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, so, you know, going into that, I guess here's a little... Let me get a little guide for this one, because I don't really quite remember this one as much as the first one. At least not, like, well.
The main thing...
Let's see.
Yeah, in terms of story, the main thing for that one is it's very, very focused on how much trouble Peter has, like, gauging his... finding a balance between his Spider-Man superhero life and his Peter Parker, like, normal human life. On the first 20 minutes of the film, you barely see Spider-Man. It's mostly all about Peter saying how he's not there for for his friends and family. Like Mary Jane has a play on Broadway and he hasn't even seen it yet because he's just too busy being Spider-Man. He gets fired from his job of like delivering pizza. He almost gets fired from the Daily Bugle, and he gets terrible grade in university. All that just because he can't get to where he has to be on time because he's too busy being Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm. And it's that's like the other than Dr. Octopus himself, I would even argue to say that that's the primary focus of this movie because that's where most of the time is spent.
It's Peter Parker and Spider-Man's quest in this film, more than defeating Doc Ock, is trying to find a balance. Like that's what the entire film is about. That's his quest. That's what he tries to achieve.
Yeah, but I guess going into a short synopsis, or as short as I can possibly make it, we pick up where we left off. Peter and Harry's relationship is a little strained because all Harry really talks about anymore is, Spider-Man killed my father. I have to kill Spider-Man. I have to find him. But, him and Mary Jane, as you mentioned, a little strained after the last movie. She's on Broadway now, and she's dating another guy. But Peter is tasked by his professor to write a paper about just anything he really wants to. So he chooses his focus is on the research of Dr. Otto Octavius, who just so happens to be doing some research right now on renewable energy under the financial backing of Oscorp. And since the person who is providing that financial backing is Harry gets Peter in to meet Dr. Octavius. So they kind of talk a little bit, and Octavius, or Otto, played by Alfred Molina, offers Peter, we'll come to the demonstration tomorrow where we're gonna, see how to, or I guess demonstrate the renewable energy that I've been working on. So Peter goes to this demonstration where Harry's there, Octavius is there with his wife. It's like in his apartment, and during the presentation, Octavius reveals the operators for this energy device are 4 robotic tentacle-like arms on his back that are linked to his brain through artificial intelligence. And to make sure that nothing goes wrong, there's a little inhibitor chip on the back of his neck that keeps it all under his control. So he begins the experiment, which basically dooms itself right from the get-go, and begins to magnetize everything towards the gathering power that looks like a little sun in the middle of that thing. That Octavius, that's kind of his whole thing through this movie, is kind of harnessing the power of the sun. But it goes completely wrong. So Peter decides to change quickly into Spider-Man and rush in to save the day. He saves Harry and gets everybody out of there, but at the last minute, trying to figure out how to shut it off, it completely goes unstable. Glass flies everywhere, kills Octavius's wife, and incapacitates Otto. And so, Spider-Man leaves, and it cuts to this surgery where they're trying to separate Octavius from the arms. In which he's still kind of out of it, but during this surgery he reawakens and the tentacles go insane, killing everybody in the room. in a scene that is one of the best sequences in this entire trilogy.
That scene is a scene that you watch and you're like, oh yeah, right, that's directed by the guy who made Evil Dead. Yeah, I forgot. Now I see it.
It is so Evil Dead. I love it so much.
Evil Dead.
I was watching with a big smile on my face.
Like the scene of the doctor being dragged out and just like scratching the floor with her nails. Yeah. And literally just the guy like pulling out a chainsaw. It's like, oh, are you kidding me? You got a chainsaw for real? Mm-hmm. It's so funny.
It's so completely Evil Dead.
Yeah.
But he, escapes into the night and starts kind of, creating chaos around town. And so J. Jonah Jameson of the Daily Bugle, which, we'll talk about him. All of my notes are in my like overall section of the trilogy because he's just such a great presence. But J. Jonah Jameson nicknames the new eight-legged eight-limb Octavius as Dr. Octopus. So we get a bit of a break from the octopus stuff, and we get my quote-unquote favorite thing in this trilogy, and that's the Mary Jane and Peter drama. I'm just kidding. I hate it. I hate it so much. I really hate it. I think it is so abysmally done, and really breaks away from like the good stuff. And I'm not saying that I think it wouldn't have been great. I don't think it's like a thing that's not. It has its place. I just don't think it's done very well.
Yeah.
But Mary Jane is.
I think.
Oh yeah, what were you gonna say?
Yeah. I'd say the main thing is like, Peter is such an idiot in those scenes.
Oh, he's so dumb.
It's so dumb.
It's dumb. It's dumb beyond reason. Like you can be awkward. I understand the whole like awkward when talking to a girl thing or awkward when being in a relationship thing. But this is like beyond the pale stuff right here.
It's like
it is so.
She just got engaged with an astronaut, and you're asking her to go back with you? Really?
Yeah, I think I wrote down. This is my actual note. I wrote down. Peter is extremely socially inept. Like every time he talks to MJ in this movie, he just says the most stupid shit. So,
yeah, I mean, yeah.
As you mentioned, MJ gets engaged to an astronaut who is J. Jonah Jameson's son, John, and Peter kind of has like a freak out and decides to just stop being Spider-Man, and tries to come back to his normal life. And tries to reconcile with Mary Jane. It doesn't work. But in this comes another one of my notes. In the moment in the movie where I almost lost my mind laughing because I forgot this was a part of it, or I forgot this line was said. Now, I think Tobey Maguire is a good actor. I think he has a lot of moments in this trilogy that are legitimately good, but the way he says this line. Makes me cry laughing, and that's when he has a flashback to the he has this inner conscience moment with Uncle Ben, and he has tears in his eyes and he goes, "I am Spider-Man, no more," and I love it so much.
I didn't notice that.
It is one of the. It's one of the, I guess, one of my favorite Tobey Maguire lines. But yeah, that's my main problem with this movie.
Can I just?
Oh yeah.
Since you talk about your favorite weird my
favorite, go ahead.
My favorite ironically funny line of this movie is after the whole Octavius thing happens and everything blows up, and they get out of the building, and Harry starts complaining about Spider-Man. This one says, "He saved your life, sir," and then he just says, "He humiliated me by touching me." Which I think, and then he just puts on his sunglasses, and I think it's so funny.
Oh
I think
yeah,
it's one of the
it is
funniest
so good.
scenes.
Oh my god, we could.
love that
I
line.
think that's good. That's gonna have to be part of our overall discussion. Is just the amount of amazing lines in this trilogy.
Oh
It
my
is
God,
so quotable.
The meme potential out of this trilogy is amazing.
It is so quotable. It's amazing. But I mean, I guess back to the summary, which we're almost done. Octavius decides to continue his research into the renewable energy source, but he requires a tritium, I think it is, which he can only get from Harry Osborn. So he visits Harry and kind of like roughs him up and demands it. Harry agrees, but only if Octavius can get Spider-Man and bring him Spider-Man so that Harry can kill him. Octavius agrees. He locates Peter, who is actually starting to kind of kindle something with Mary Jane. Kidnaps him, and tells him he kidnaps Mary Jane. He's like, if you value this woman, tell Spider-Man to come to this location, and he does. And they have the big. This is kind of like the big like Doc Ock fight, where it ends up on the train. And Peter's like roughed up, even at this point. Yeah. But Octopus basically sets up the train to just not stop, and he's like, "All right, have fun." So Spider-Man has to stop a very fast-moving train before it reaches the end of the line and crashes through into the lake. And so, he stops the train, but in that process loses his mask. And is probably here's another really big highlight from this movie, and a personal highlight from the trilogy is after stopping the train, he basically like passes out, but all the New Yorkers on the train help him and promise him that they won't tell anybody who he is. But they bring him his mask back, and Octavius comes in, and he demands he takes Spider-Man from the New Yorkers and brings him to Harry. Harry is like, yes, thank you, and he gives Octopus the tritium so he can start the experiment. Harry, gears up. He has like a knife in his hand, and he decides, he's like, all right, before I kill you, I want to see who you really are. And so he rips off the mask, and he's like, and then comes the moment where it's like, oh no, my best friend was Spider-Man. And I think it's probably one of the, I think the whole Harry Osborn storyline is one of my favorite threads throughout this entire trilogy. But Peter, Harry's like really, really shocked by this, and basically Peter tells Harry to just go like, all right, we need to put our differences aside. Octavius is gonna destroy New York if you don't lead me to where he is right now. And so Harry agrees and tells him where the lab is. So Peter, swings over there, and the final battle continues, or the final battle like begins, and they battle again as like the unstable power generator is starting to get more and more crazy. Peter decides to reveal his identity in the same room as Mary Jane and Octavius, revealing his identity to both of them, and he persuades Octavius to, stop the generator, which he does by grabbing it with his tentacles and basically crashing into the New York lake, like just into the water to neutralize the power generator, but killing Octavius in the process. Mary Jane, now knowing Peter's identity, they kind of reconcile the whole thing. It's like, this is why we can't, be together. And she's like, oh, I understand. And so he lets her go back to her fiance. Then they kind of have this scene near the end where Mary Jane's getting married, but decides to run out on her fiance and go be with Peter, fully accepting his lifestyle as Spider-Man. And then we get a little teaser. We get a little moment of like, oh, where Harry is by himself in his mansion, and begins to see visions of his father in a mirror, which enrages him, causing him to throw something at the mirror and shattering it, revealing Norman's secret goblin room with all of the bombs, the serums, the glider, which reveals it to Harry and reveals a way that he can get back at Spider-Man. And that is pretty much everything that happens in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, what notes do you have?
So the main thing that I noticed during this movie is just how funny it is.
It's
yeah, and I never really made the connection how this movie definitely is the most comedy focused of the entire trilogy.
I don't know
do you not agree?
I don't know if I completely agree, but that's something for our discussion of the next one.
Right. Oh, yeah. All right. I get what you're saying, but in my opinion,
I can see what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, especially the main scene that I'm thinking of is after there's the first scene where Peter isn't able to shoot his web. He goes to an elevator and he just sees a guy who's just like, wait, what the hell? Why is Spider-Man in the elevator? He's just like, it's just this really funny and awkward scene of like, oh, that's a cool suit you got there. Thanks, I made it. Does it get itchy? Yeah, sometimes. Gets pretty tight around the crotch. Okay. Just very, very awkward and very, very funny. There's a lot of other very funny scenes. And yeah, but I'd say I really like the whole part of the movie where Peter isn't Spider-Man. I think in terms of character evolution, I think that's very interesting. Kind of he keeps saying how he doesn't like to be Spider-Man, and then you've got this part of the film where it's like, all right, you get what you wanted, you're not Spider-Man anymore. Do you like that? And then he's like, no, I don't. I want to go back to being Spider-Man, which I think is really very nice, and I really like the way the whole Peter Parker character was handled in this movie.
I would agree somewhat. I think it's the whole plot line of I don't really want to be Spider-Man anymore, is it's kind of part of the regular Spider-Man story, but I just think those scenes in particular are just not fun to watch during this movie. But that's probably just me because a lot of people love those scenes and love this movie specifically.
Yeah. I'll say that's something a bit unrelated that I thought about, which is how I feel like most people say that this movie is the best one in the trilogy, and I'll be honest, I agree with those. It's my favorite of the trilogy, and I feel like for a lot of people, the reason why that is mainly because of the train scene, which is just
The
like
train scene is iconic.
it's
Yeah.
one of the best action scene in history. It's not, like not just in superhero movies, but just action films in general. It's just so good, and it's like I like how the main focus of the scene isn't really for a big part of the scene. The focus isn't even Doc Ock. It's just like trying to stop the train. And it's just like the way that you see Spider-Man trying so much and using so much of his strength. And I know a lot of people keep making fun of Tobey Maguire for the faces he makes during that scene, which, I mean, to a certain point, fair enough. But I do think that they're like, yes, they're goofy, but they're also like realistic. That's what he would look like if he tried to like stop a train.
It makes sense. It's just goofy looking. I understand
It's the same thing with whenever he cries. Like for so long, people have been making fun, especially when Uncle Ben dies. Like the way he cries in that scene, and honestly, that's some of the most realistic crying I've seen in any movie, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. It's not like the classic Hollywood like one tear falling down the main character's face.
That one specifically doesn't make me laugh, but the part near the end when he reveals his identity to Mary Jane and the building piece is like falling on her, and the way he's like smiling like he's like really happy, and then immediately his face switches to just no is the funniest part of that entire that entire scene. I love that scene.
His scream's also very funny in the whole series. Like,
they're incredible.
Yeah. There's the scream the first time that he web shoots that he swings with one of his webs, and he just like starts screaming as he's about to like smash a wall. That's one of my favorite screams of the whole trilogy. I
guess my way to kind of just sum up my thoughts on this one is I think the action scenes are amazing. Mm-hmm. I think they're probably the best action scenes of the trilogy. But the human drama is just not very good. I think it could have been done much better. But I think I think it's still good. I think it's still a good movie.
Right.
But I still think the first one is my favorite. But that's all I had written down for this one. I kind of mentioned everything that I had. Did you have anything left?
No, I'm noticing that most of my notes are related to the first 20 minutes of the movie, which I think is kind of weird. But yeah, I remember. I feel like even as a kid, that was the movie that I watched like the least. Because I only watched like the action scenes, and I feel like the other movies have more action scenes, and this one has more like dialogue scenes.
I agree.
But like as a kid, this definitely wasn't my favorite one. But as an adult, it's funny how like my view of the whole trilogy has changed. Where now it's my favorite one. But yeah, no, I don't really. I feel like a lot of stuff that I have to say about this one is going to be in the overall review of the trilogy.
Right.
So
I guess I guess it's time to move on to Spider-Man 3.
The controversial one.
The very controversial one.
All right. All right, before we start, I have to talk about like my history with this particular movie.
Okay.
So, Spider-Man 3 is the first movie that I remember watching in theaters.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. back in 2007 when I must have been 4 years old. I remember going to the theater with my family, going to watch that movie, and in general, it really was like when I was a kid, that was my favorite one. That was the one that I was watching all the time, and in general, I've always had and always will have a massive nostalgia for this movie and a huge love that probably isn't entirely objective. Like definitely a huge part of why I love this film is because like it's such an important film like for me. But yeah, so that's just to say, like I'm gonna talk about this movie and I'm not gonna be very subjective. But yeah. So, Spider-Man 3, the last
Yes.
movie of the trilogy, again, obviously directed by Sam Raimi, with quite a lot of new characters introduced in this one.
Yeah, very much so.
There's obviously the main villain, Sandman, who's played by, hold on, let me just find his name, who's played by Thomas Hayden Church, who, yeah, definitely is the main villain, but there's also another villain, the big Spider-Man villain, Venom, in this movie, played by Topher Grace, who at the time was just out of his run on That 70s Show, and there's also obviously Gwen Stacy. There's his father, who's the chief of police. There's who else? I feel like that's kind of it.
I'm trying to think if there were any more like new major players in this one.
I think that's it. But those characters are
Yeah.
very important to the story.
Yes. So, okay. I really, I really wanted to come into this, come into this episode not really, I guess, trashing on Spider-Man 3,
All right.
but I think it is just such a mess that I really
All right.
like. There's specific things that I like. There's like little parts that I think are fun to watch, but I think overall it just does not work.
I mean, to be
But I guess,
like, yeah, fair enough.
I guess we could just summarize
Yeah.
the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of fast forward a year from the end of the last movie, and Peter is planning to propose to Mary Jane, who just made her Broadway musical debut. And after the musical, they decide to go hang out on a big spider web in Central Park, and a meteor lands nearby, unbeknownst to both of them, that houses an alien life form known as a symbiote that follows Peter. And Harry, obviously he knows Peter's Spider-Man, is wanting to, still avenge his father. So he begins his transformation with the performance enhancing, gas. And he battles Peter. He just picks him up, scoops him off the street on his little motorbike. And they fly through, they fly through and fight, which is actually, I really like this scene. Action.
Oh yeah, it's great.
I think it's really exciting. The whole the wedding. So on the scene in the scene before this, he gets a wedding ring from Aunt May, her wedding ring from Uncle Ben to propose to Mary Jane with. But that's an element in this fight between him and Harry, is that he doesn't want to lose the wedding ring, and he almost does a couple times. So, they keep fighting until Harry flies into a metal beam and injures his head, developing everybody's favorite plot device, amnesia, causing him to forget all the events of the past two movies, except for the fact that his father is dead. Or yeah, he remembers that part, but everything else is just kind of blurry. Meanwhile, we get kind of like a look at an escaped convict, Flint Marco, played by Thomas Hayden Church, who visits his wife and sick daughter before leaving again. But while he's running, on the run, the police kind of corner him, causing him to run into an experiment facility, which causes him to fall into a particle accelerator that fuses his body with the sand that surrounds the particle accelerator, basically reforming his body into sand, or like giving him the ability to control the sand that makes up his body, turning him into Sandman. And so after this, we get there's this festival that is honoring Spider-Man. Or actually, okay, wait, no. Before this, we get a scene where Gwen Stacy is doing this like modeling thing, and is interrupted. Interrupted by Sandman destroying the building that she is working in, causing this whole scene where we get 3 character introductions. Well, I mean, Gwen was already kind of introduced, but not like too formally before this. We get Gwen's first major scene. We get the first interaction with Eddie Brock, played by Topher Grace. Mm-hmm. And we get obviously Gwen's father as the chief of police. Spider-Man does his whole thing, saves Gwen from the broken building. And then there's a festival held by the chief of police to thank Spider-Man for saving his daughter. And during this festival, in front of everybody, Spider-Man, does his little web down, and kisses Gwen Stacy in front of the crowd to kind of do a little bit of a crowd pleasing act, which angers Mary Jane. Yeah, there's that part that creates all of the Mary Jane drama for this movie. Mm-hmm. Then there's at that exact moment, Sandman is kind of like robbing this armored truck, and they have their first like little fight, I guess. And after this, Peter and May are called to the police station because the chief of police, Gwen Stacy's dad, informs them that Flint Marco was actually the true killer of Uncle Ben, and that the robber from the first movie was just an accomplice. And this basically causes Peter to lose his mind, and sit in his apartment all day, listening to the police scanner and waiting for them to mention Flint Marco. During this little like moment, Mary Jane comes over. He tells her to leave, and he sleeps in his Spider-Man suit just so he's like able to leave like at a moment's notice. But while he's doing this, the symbiote that followed him from the park assimilates with his suit. Basically, Peter figures out that the symbiote has colored his suit black, enhanced his powers, made him very strong, but also brings out a darker side in him, making him, a little edgier, a little a little more rough around the edges. And he locates, during this symbiote thing, he locates where Sandman is, and goes to fight him, and discovers in the he battles him in a subway tunnel, which gives him the opportunity to discover that water is Sandman's weakness, opening a pipe and reducing Sandman to mud and just washing him away. Thinking that he killed him, Peter is very happy about this and leaves back to his apartment. And this new personality of his, alienates him from Mary Jane, alienates him from Aunt May, and there's this little side plot where amnesiac Harry is hanging out with Mary Jane. They kind of almost start, they almost kiss. They have a moment together, and she decides to leave. But right after she leaves, Harry gets a vision of his father, which completely snaps him out of the amnesia stuff. And he forces Mary Jane to break up with Peter. Harry meets with Peter and tells him that Mary Jane is in love with him. Peter confronts Harry under the influence of the symbiote, and tells this part kind of made me laugh because it's a little funny, but it's meant to be kind of like biting. There's the part where he fights him and goes your father never loved you, and what does he call him? He goes, "Oh, look at you, little goblin."
Oh, little Goblin Jr. gonna cry?
Yeah, little Goblin Jr. gonna cry. That's amazing. And he also he redirects a bomb that Harry throws at him, which explodes and disfigures his face, or Harry's face. And during all this, Eddie Brock, who is also a photographer for the Daily Bugle, trying to get a scoop on Spider-Man so he can take Peter's job, succeeds. But Peter fakes a photo that supposedly exposes Eddie as a plagiarizer. And so J. Jonah Jameson fires Eddie and promotes Peter, and Peter they have this scene where Peter brings Gwen to a jazz club where Mary Jane works, and they do this whole dance to make Mary Jane jealous. Gwen leaves.
Yeah.
And Peter, gets a little mad because the bouncers are trying to take him out, and he beats them up and accidentally hits Mary Jane, which causes him to realize that the symbiote is corrupting him. So he goes to to a nearby church, and realizes that the high pitched sounds of the metal clanging against, the bell clanging against its just the outer side of the bell, causes the symbiote to freak out. And so making the bell continue to chime, he tears the symbiote off him. But during this moment, Eddie Brock is in that church praying to God to kill Peter Parker. But at this moment, he hears Peter screaming from the top of the bell tower, and realizes that he's Spider-Man. But during this, the symbiote falls from the top of the bell tower and follows Eddie, making him the new host of the symbiote, turning him into Venom.
Mm-hmm.
As Venom, he locates Marco Sandman and convinces that him, like, let's join forces and kill Spider-Man. So they abduct Mary Jane and hold up at a construction site. And so during this, Peter reconciles with Harry,
Mm-hmm.
and Harry has this like realization with his butler that Norman's death was not Peter's fault, and so he decides to help Peter fight Venom and Sandman, and they have a really good fight between the four of them, and during this, Venom, kind of gains the upper hand on Spider-Man for a second and attempts to kill him with Harry's glider. But, like father, like son, Harry interrupts, or like Harry tries to block this, but is also stabbed by the glider, fatally wounding him. And during this, he remembers the weakness, or Peter remembers like the weakness of Venom, and like starts clanging metal together, which works and separates Brock from the symbiote. So he destroys it with one of Harry's pumpkin bombs. Brock is like, he kind of like he's attached to the symbiote, so he jumps in to like save it, but is also blown up in the process, killing Venom.
Mm-hmm.
Then the fight is kind of ending, and Sandman explains to Peter that the death of Uncle Ben was more or less an accident, and it's haunted him. He's trying to save his daughter, and this is like a really good scene. Like I really wish the relationship between I'll save that for the final discussion. I'll mention the ending right now. So
Sure.
Peter forgives Sandman, Harry and Peter reconcile, and Harry passes away from his injuries, and Peter and Mary Jane are finally back together with a strengthened relationship, and that is the end of Spider-Man 3.
Yep.
So let's get into it.
All right. So I am gonna go ahead and directly say the thing that, because obviously I'm not stupid. I know that there's a lot of stuff that doesn't work with this movie. So I'm gonna say the main thing that I say like is an issue with this film. If you erase Eddie Brock Jr. and Venom, as well as Gwen, if you erase those characters, the movie becomes the best movie of the entire trilogy.
No question about it. No, it's like I think legitimately. Okay, so for those who don't know, this is like the big elephant in the room regarding this movie. During production, Sam Raimi wanted this movie to focus on Sandman, with a secondary focus on Harry Osborn. But the studio really wanted Venom in the movie, so he had to comply and add Venom into the movie, which just creates this chaotic, like, it really does feel like this movie has no singular focus, because it really doesn't. It is mainly there to just kind of like bounce between all these three and try and find a balance, which it doesn't end up finding that balance. It kind of, it has a lot of great ideas. Like, I think the scenes between Peter and Sandman are really good, and I think if a whole movie was given to develop that, I think it could have been really good. I think it could have been really cool.
Well, I think it's really funny to compare the characters of Sandman and Venom, and just like it almost feels like a parent that clearly has a favorite child, because it's like, all right,
It really
in
is.
in one corner you have Sandman, who like he's a very deep character. Like the whole story of, he's not a bad guy. He just wants to get money for his daughter, because she has like a terrible disease. That whole thing, I'm pretty sure, don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that this is not in the original comics. This is something that Sam Raimi created to make the character more interesting and to make it more than just like a big brute who just wants to just wants money to be richer. And he also gives him the best scene in the entire movie, and one of the best scenes in the entire trilogy, which is this scene where he just wakes up and after he's become the Sandman and tries to like get up, and
Oh my god, that's a great one.
So good. It's good.
Even the CGI in that moment is great. Like it is not aged a day.
Absolutely not. And so we got this. Honestly, I think Sandman might be. It's like I'd say the best villain of the entire trilogy is either him or Green Goblin. It's one or the other. And
I think if he was given room to breathe, he definitely would have been the best one. But I think Green Goblin indisputably is the best, at least in my mind. But I can see where that opinion comes from, and I think I agree.
Mm-hmm. And on the other side, you have Venom, who, first of all, just in terms of screen time, like Eddie becomes Venom in like the last 30 minutes of the movie, and even when he's Venom, all his dialogues are all like, "Oh, boo hoo hoo, you humiliated me. Oh, no, why did you do this to me? Oh, I'm so sad." It's you can clearly see that Sam Raimi does not like Venom, and that he does not want to make a movie with Venom. And I think, honestly, that really sucks for him, but I also think it's really, like, the way it was handled is very funny.
It is. It is pretty funny to watch.
Yeah.
But you mentioned it earlier about removing things from the movie. I think Gwen Stacy could have been cut out of the movie, even in terms of like just footage, and I think nothing would have changed. Bryce Dallas Howard does a fine job as Gwen. There's the acting.
Oh, that's not
no
the issue.
Problem. Yeah, that's not the issue here. It's story, because Gwen serves nothing in this movie.
No,
and really only serves to create drama between Mary Jane and Peter, which, as I established, is my least favorite thing in this trilogy.
Yeah, and even like I thought it was so weird how like the scene where they go to the jazz bar is like it's the first time you ever see Peter and Gwen together. Like, they kissed earlier, but she doesn't know that he's Spider-Man. Where did they meet? How? Why? What is going on? Like, there's no explanation to that.
Well, it was established that they were lab partners.
Never mind, I forgot about that.
Yeah, but it's all right.
Yeah,
but like I guess the thing, the Gwen part that makes me the most angry is the fact that they kiss at the festival. It makes no sense. And only serves like just a plot.
In terms of character,
it makes no sense. It is so
like,
oh my god.
The best explanation I can give it is it just shows how like kind of cocky Peter has become as Spider-Man, and how confident he's become. They're just like, oh, let's kiss. I don't know, but
like how did he not think that wasn't gonna backfire?
Yeah, no, I think that's, even as a kid, I thought that was weird.
Yeah,
but no, obviously like. Those are the two main things. Like Venom and Gwen are the two characters that like have no purpose being there and should just like have never been in the movie in the first place.
Yeah, like I think I think getting to the end, I think Harry's inclusion in the fight, I think Sandman, I think that's all really good. I just wish it had a different introduction. I wish it had a different build up. I wish we got to that ending differently. Because I think it works. And I think, obviously Sam Raimi knows it works.
Yeah.
But, I just think this movie is one of the best examples of studio meddling kind of going way too far.
Yeah.
But, as a kid, I ate it up. Black Spider-Man symbiote venom was like, I remember I was that for Halloween one year. I had like toys of that. Dude, I loved Spider-Man 3 when I was a kid.
Oh yeah. I think like Spider-Man in general, but especially at the time that the film came out, like the Black Spider-Man suit was a very popular Halloween costume.
It was.
Yeah.
I think I went as that year. That was some.
Yeah.
I'm
pretty sure like me and my brothers were all Spider-Man that year. But yeah.
Me and my brother were I was black suit Spider-Man, he was regular Spider-Man. That was like our was like our big toy thing for a while, as we would get like those toys.
I remember like my one of my brother was way into specifically Sandman, and like it was his favorite character, and he had
awesome
toys of him. I remember as a kid I had so many Spider-Man toys. That was so cool. Like
that's really cool.
Like those movies, it's like the more I think about it, it's like it's crazy how important those movies were in my childhood. Like
I don't even think about it, but like the more I remember, like I had the Spider-Man 3DS game that rocked.
Oh dude, I had the Game Boy Advance game. That one sucked. Oh no, that's just a random stuff. I remember I had the Spider-Man 3 game on so many different systems. Like I had it on Game Boy Advance, was a shitty 2D game because Game Boy Advance. But I also had I had like the main game on like Wii, Xbox. I even had it on PC for some reason. I remember I really liked it. I should try to play it on stream. That would be funny.
That would be fun.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, and I'm sure like if anyone watches like they were born around like the early 2000s and like 90s, like they're also gonna have the same like experience with the trilogies we had. It's really like
I was it's funny you mentioned that because I was talking to one of my friends earlier today, and I was telling him that we were going to record this episode. Right. And he's like, "Well, don't trash on Spider-Man 3 too hard." I'm like, I was like, I don't think I will. And he basically said everything that we did. So it's like it's so crazy that everybody else has like the same like idea. Like this is the movie, but we all had the same kind of impact from it because it was just so. It was so big because it was before.
It was massive.
It was before the MCU, like before. Yeah. Before superhero movies were like pretty big in our culture. We had these movies that were so huge and so, influential, and it's just so interesting to see how everything's changed with the idea of a superhero movie, and I think that's a really good reflection even on No Way Home, which we talked about last episode, was just like how much these characters have evolved into that.
But that's something that I saw that's something that I saw with the whole internet reaction of No Way Home, just how much love there was especially for Tobey Maguire and Willem Dafoe, but just everyone else who worked on the trilogy. Like just if you look at the amount of memes that that have arrived from the trilogy in the recent weeks, like the whole Bully Maguire thing, which I adore. I love it so much.
No, it's so funny. No, okay, Symbiote Peter has some of my favorite lines in this entire trilogy. Like two that I'll point out. Two that I'll point out right now
yeah.
is when Eddie like Eddie runs up to him as Spider-Man, like before he jumps into like the sewer to fight, or the subway to fight Sandman. Spider-Man like webs his camera and like throws it at a wall and just goes, "See ya, chump," and then jumps to the sewer.
Yeah.
And it's like the funniest thing. But also there's
So
the
good.
part where
Yeah.
there's the part where he's first swinging around as symbiote Venom symbiote
Oh, right.
Spider-Man, and he perches on like he sticks to this like ceiling, or like this roof, and he like takes off the mask and looks at it and just goes, "This is something else." I love the way he says that.
Yeah. I thought you were gonna mention one of my favorite lines, which is when he sees like the article that was made from the picture that Eddie took of the black suit, and he just sees it and he says, "I'm gonna put some dirt in your eye," which is
Yes!
I love it so much.
I forgot he said that.
It's
Put some dirt in your
man.
eye.
And also, like, you gotta appreciate how, like, the whole hype that came out of No Way Home and the new love that people gave to the Spider-Man trilogy kind of like single-handedly brought back YouTube poops to the dead, like from the dead, and like it's funny how some people are so good at like editing videos and they spend their talent on making like stupid Bully Maguire YouTube poops, and I love them so much. It's so it's like there's one that I think is so funny, which is Bully Maguire goes to Family Feud, and he just
I don't think
starts
I've seen that one, but
he just starts like beating the shit out of Steve Harvey, and it's like first of all really funny, second of all weirdly well made. And it's like
I love stuff like that.
oh my god, I love it so much. This is why the internet was created. Like this is why we're here.
I agree completely.
Yeah.
But that's, I think I said everything I had to say about like Spider-Man 3 specifically, but I guess to get into just overall discussion on the trilogy. I think it's, while some moments and some parts have not like, aged to perfection, I think it is still a really entertaining trilogy of movies that has its down moments, but also has its like legitimately great moments, and I think it served as the foundation for a lot of the superhero movies we see nowadays.
Right.
But I think it's great stuff, and to add on to just all the legitimately great moments, even some of the bad moments you can find an insane amount of humor in. Like they're just so funny. even if you don't like it legitimately, they're just funny moments.
Yeah, it's like just in general, like the entire trilogy is like they're some of the most entertaining movies I've ever seen. It's like you cannot watch I feel like you can't watch those movies and not have a great time, whether or not you generally you ironically or unironically love them. Like, so great.
And the other thing I wanted to mention in terms of overall trilogy things is, obviously there's. Oh, hang on. I feel embarrassed because I don't. Oh no, I don't remember. Hang on. J.K. Simmons. J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson is probably the most definitively iconic thing of this trilogy.
Oh my god.
Even Marvel knew it, and that's why they recast him as the same guy in their trilogy. I think it's the perfect casting that I think, like, it's one of the most perfect castings that's ever happened. Like, he plays the part amazingly. All of his lines sound like they were like made perfectly. Like, there's just so much there's just so much perfection
Yeah.
in how J. Jonah Jameson is done in this trilogy.
He's just so good. Like he's actually perfect.
Mm-hmm. Like he's a phenomenal actor anyway. But this trilogy brings it to a whole new level.
Mm-hmm. It's my personal favorite scene of J.K. Simmons in the trilogy is in Spider-Man 3 when he's got like just the mountain of pills he has to take in front of him, and he's like he's got his his like assistant who keeps like pressing a buzzer to like alert him, and he like the whole desk starts to shake. And it's just so like he wants to like obviously like he takes like anger management pills and everything, and it's like he tries to stay calm, and it's just so difficult to do so because it's just so what's happening around him is so annoying, and it's like he's about to start screaming. It's like, your wife said you have to manage your anger. All right, continue. He's just it feels so out of like character to see him so calm and so like not screaming at people, and it's so funny.
He has such like, I think two specifically of my favorite lines of his is I don't remember what it was, but he said like Peter offers like a higher price. I think it was in Spider-Man 3. Where he offers him for it's like $100, and then Peter offers like a much higher price than that, and he goes, "That's outrageous." Done.
Yeah, that was in Spider-Man 2. Yeah, when he
Spider-Man
has
2,
to go to the thing with the sun.
Yeah. It's outrageous. Done.
Yeah.
My other favorite line from him that I just remembered today was when Peter's talking to him about how much he bashes Spider-Man. He's like, "That's slander," and he went and Jonah Jameson's like actually offended. He's like, "No, slander is slander is spoken, written is libel." It's like it's like so perfect.
I forgot like what might be actually his best scene as JJJ, which is when he puts on the Spider-Man suit.
Oh my god!
And everyone's just like looking out the window, kind of judging him, and it's like
it's like doing all those sound effects.
Oh yeah, and so I think it's genius how like he finally starts to be like, I feel so bad doing that, like, because Spider-Man actually was a hero. And then Spider-Man comes back and steals his suit. He's like, he's a thief. He's a menace. And just how quickly he switches back to like thinking Spider-Man is the bad guy. I love him so much.
He's a thief. Yeah, he's incredible.
I love it. And also just in terms of like appearance, he's probably the most comic accurate character in the entire trilogy. He really was just the perfect cast. And it's like, honestly, I feel one of the reasons why he was asked to come back for the MCU is, first of all, he was like the best choice, but second of all, I feel like if they had chosen someone else, Marvel and that new actor would have gotten like so much hate, because they would have been like, "Oh, why didn't you pick J.K. Simmons?" And honestly, just for that, I think like that really was the best solution for them, which is kind of unfortunate, but
yeah, I think it more or less would have it more or less would have been just the thing like, I understand that you have to recast people, but just it wouldn't have felt right.
Right.
In my mind, there's no J. Jonah Jameson without either J.K. Simmons or a guy who sounds like J.K. Simmons.
Yeah, like in the PS4 game. Yeah.
Yeah. In my mind, there's no way.
Yeah. I'll always remember when I was in theaters watching Far From Home, and we just got to the end credit scenes, and it's like, first of all, the whole like Mysterio reveals Peter Parker's identity, and second of all, the whole for J.K. Simmons coming back. It was just me and my brother in the theater going like, "Whoa, holy shit, he's back!"
Like, I am usually the quietest person in the theater. Like I don't like talking to people or anything, but I remember so vividly when J.K. Simmons came on the screen. I screamed. I was like, yes, yes.
Yeah, dude, it's like I'm the same thing where I'm very quiet in theaters, but I notice I'm very quiet except when it comes to watching a Spider-Man movie, because when I watch a Spider-Man movie, it's always like everyone going crazy, especially for No Way Home. Like, whenever there was like, especially with the scene with Toby and Andrew, but also the scene where Daredevil arrives, which is just like everyone going crazy. It's honestly, I will say Spider-Man No Way Home was my favorite experience in theaters of the entire year. Like it was just so much fun.
That's all I had for like overall discussion. I think I kind of touched on everything that I wanted to say. If you had any other notes.
Hold on, let me just look at my notes. I think I said pretty much all I had to say.
Well, all right. That was our discussion on the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy, and I'm actually very surprised about the fact that it I guess that it reached the length that it is, because currently my recording's at 1 hour and 36 minutes. So we got a lot out of it, which I wasn't surprised.
Yeah,
I'm not surprised about it, but we also have a lot of other stuff to talk about.
Oh yeah,
more specifically, since this is our last or our first video, or our first podcast of the new year. I think it's since this was going to be our originally our year-end episode, we were going to talk about our year with movies, and more specifically our top 10. And even if you want to, I was kind of thinking we might want to talk about our bottom 5 movies, or if you don't have any, that's fine.
Yeah, but it's more that I haven't seen enough movie to have like a top 10 and a bottom 5.
Okay.
But I could talk in general about like. Also, I feel like I haven't seen a single movie this year that was like actually bad. I know you have. You've talked about those on the podcast.
It's true. I have.
I know what's your your number one least favorite film of the year. I'm pretty sure I know which one it is.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
But yeah. So should we just talk about like? First of all, I have an idea. In general, what did you think of this year in terms of movies?
I think it was a year of a lot of like returns that I was happy with, like directors returning, like Wes Anderson, franchises returning, like Spider-Man, specific people returning, like Bo Burnham, I guess other franchises like Evangelion. There's just a lot more of people coming back and either releasing something great or releasing something not so great, but with some good moments. That was this year, but it was also a year of like, there were a lot of, in my opinion, mediocre movies this year. In the fact that there's, I think like maybe 15 movies I saw that I just thought were like very, very mid. But, I think overall it was a good year. Definitely not bad or anything.
Well, what I think of this year is it feels like we got a lot of, like, especially if we compare the year to 2020, which honestly I thought 2020 was a very bad year in terms of movie life.
It was.
Especially if you look at the Oscar selection, there was nothing. Yeah. There was nothing, and that's one of the reasons why I'm excited about this year's Oscar. There's gonna be so much more stuff. Like
there's really only like there was really only like 4 standouts from 2021, at least in my opinion.
There was
like
there was Minari, the Chloe Zhao film. I forgot the name. Nomadland.
No Man's Land. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess in terms of like great movies, I think I only saw like 2 movies that like I really think are fantastic, which is Pixar's Soul, and I recently watched I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Charlie Kaufman, which I really loved.
Yeah.
But yeah, like other than that, 2020 was very lackluster, but I think this year made up for it with a lot of good. A lot of good came out of this year.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. But do you want to get into your top 10?
Sure. So again, I'm gonna say 2 things. First of all, I've seen a total of, I think, 12 movies that came out this year. So my top 10 is like most of the film that I saw, and I'm sure that there's a couple of film that I put in my top 10 that if I had seen other movies, they wouldn't be in it. And you can definitely see that with my number 10, but I'll get to that later. But the other thing I want to say is that this top 10 is going to be extremely biased because there were a lot of movies made by or with people that I just like cannot ever feel anything for them that isn't love. But again, I'll get to that later. But so number 10 is Spider-Man: No Way Home.
Really?
Because all right, I'm just gonna say the films that I've seen that aren't on this list are Shang-Chi, Suicide Squad, and Bad Trip with Eric Andre, and so those the films in the list are all the other films that I've seen. So number 10. Spider-Man: No Way Home, just because I needed a number 10, and I had so much fun watching it in theaters. But I mean, I'm just gonna skip it because we've already talked enough about Spider-Man.
Yeah, I agree.
Number 9 is actually a film that I saw 2 days ago because it's on Netflix. But it's The Lost Daughter with Olivia Colman, directed by Maggie Gyllenhaal, which is her directorial debut.
Okay.
And that's the first example of me being biased because Olivia Colman is my favorite actress of all time. I adore her so much. I just have this stupid rule in my head that like nothing she makes can be under 4-star. Which, to be fair, is true mainly by the fact that she's made a lot of very good films, and this is actually one of them. Like, it's very so it's a movie about a mother who goes to a vacation like to the beach alone, and she meets like this group of like this big family who kind of reminds her of her like her secret past and the stuff that she wouldn't want to remember and that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of flashbacks between her vacation and when she was like younger, and her kids were like young, like 7 and 8. And I think it's a very good film. I saw a review that I think kind of sums it up, that I think is really funny. This film does to kids what Jaws did to sharks, which is I really finished this movie thinking like, yup, I'm never having kids in my life. That would suck.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm putting that on my radar then.
Oh yeah, yeah. The funny thing is like Olivia Colman's character in this film has 2 daughters, and I was curious. I looked it up, and Maggie Gyllenhaal has 2 daughters. So I definitely think there's a kind of like a like an autobiographical part to it.
It's like how it's like how David Lynch made Eraserhead while he was having his own baby. It's like that kind of thing.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
Kinda, yeah. To be fair, this movie has nothing to do with the Eraserhead, but
of course not. No,
of course,
yeah.
it would be weird. But Olivia Colman's really good in this movie. Obviously, I'm used to seeing her like making big performances, like in the Favorite, which is my favorite performance from her. She's very like, she. You cannot watch her in a scene and not notice her. She's unnoticeable. She's so big, like her role is so big.
When I saw the Favorite a couple years back when it came out, and I don't remember being like too crazy about the movie, but I remember her performance was a huge standout.
Yeah.
I remember being like really, really captivated by that.
And but in this movie, it's obviously she's amazing, but it's a very much more subtle performance, which I really like, and it's I don't know, it's just honestly it's a really good movie, and I'm very happy that Maggie Gyllenhaal was able to do such a good film for her first movie. So number 8 is Last Night in Soho by Edgar Wright. Which is another bias because Edgar Wright is my favorite director.
Right.
And so I'll be honest, I was a bit disappointed by it, mostly because I was very looking forward for this movie. And there are some parts that I didn't quite like, but in general, I do think I do feel like I like it more than the general public. And I don't know, I feel like some people went into this film not expecting it to be what it was, and they were kind of disappointed by it, which to some extent, like, fair enough. But I mean, we've already talked about this movie before on the podcast, so I'm not gonna get too much into it. But I really liked it. It's not my favorite film from Edgar Wright, and I feel like more than anything, this film was just him trying something new. And really, what I want from this movie is I would just want him to make more horror films, and just like, because I know he's a massive horror film fan, and I really would love it if he could like turn his career entirely from a like comedy career to a horror career, kind of like what Jordan Peele did to some extent.
I definitely think I don't know if I would want him to make the shift completely, but I definitely think that I would love to see him experiment more and get more into like. I would love to see him come back with, a horror movie that does a better job than Last Night in Soho. Not to say that it's a bad job entirely, but it definitely could be expanded upon, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I saw a lot of people, I saw a lot of people complaining that the movie was, I'm not sure what's the word, but like, it didn't go far enough. Like, it stayed a bit too much on the surface. So I hope that in his next movies he's gonna get to go deeper.
I'd love to see it.
Yeah. Number 7. That's pretty funny, and because it's another Edgar Wright film. It is The Sparks Brothers, which is a documentary about the pop duo Sparks, which is a band that was mostly popular during the 70s, 80s, and it's generally thought to be like, the way it's marketed is it's your favorite band's favorite band, which is honestly, as you see in the documentary, is pretty accurate, because you see so many like massive like celebrities and musicians that are like, oh yeah, we were so influenced by Sparks. I mean, the only one that I remember is Flea from Red Hot Chili Pepper, but I know there was a lot more. There was Weird Al, a bunch of people, and like, honestly, I thought this documentary was very interesting, because it's like it really felt like it was made by a guy who really liked this band and who he thought wasn't famous enough, so he thought, I'm gonna try to show them to as many people as possible and try to introduce them and make them like them. And honestly, it's really cool, because you get into the movie like not knowing anything about them, and you get out knowing their entire career, which I really liked. But yeah, in general, that was a very good documentary, and I really liked it. That's kind of all I had to say about this one. Next, number 6 is The Mitchells versus the Machines. So obviously the new film produced by Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who are just like, I really love them, and this movie is it's like some of the best things that have come out of Sony Animation, like Spider-Man No Way Home and that kind of stuff. And I'm pretty sure we've already talked about that one on the previous episode, I think.
We might have mentioned it, but I have not seen it yet, so we definitely didn't do like an in-depth discussion.
I thought you'd seen it.
No, but I believe we talked about it. It was probably when we were discussing Lord and Miller before.
Right. Well, I don't really have that much to say because I feel like everything's already been said so much on Twitter. But I do have something that I need to mention, which is, I don't know if you saw that, but so the main character, Katie Mitchell in the movie, she's shown as a massive movie buff, and the movie basically is her and her family going on a road trip to her college. And
really? Okay.
Yeah, and there's even some Easter eggs, like you can see on her bookshelf she's got some Criterions, which I thought was really neat.
That's awesome.
What's really cool and I really love is how I don't know who did that, but someone who worked on the film made a letterboxd account for Katie Mitchell.
Yeah, I saw that earlier this week.
And so I looked it up, and she's got a list of her top 50 greatest films, which is one of the most fascinating top 50 favorite movie lists I've ever seen. First of all, I have to say, she's got great taste. Like, there's a lot of really good movies on there. But what I really find funny is how she goes from Magnolia to the SpongeBob SquarePants movie to Bicycle Thieves. Which is just like, what?
That's quite the list.
Yeah. But I do appreciate how her number 3 is Harold and Maude. I really like that.
Oh, that's great.
Her favorite movie, this shows that her favorite movie is Portrait of a Lady on Fire. And considering the fact that she's canonically a lesbian, just makes so much sense. Because like I haven't seen Portrait of a Lady on Fire, but from what I've heard, is like the lesbian movie. So I think that's really good.
That's what I've heard as well.
Yeah, but just in general, like this is the greatest like marketing thing I've seen from a movie in a very long time. But yeah, that's pretty much it for number 6. Number 5 is The French Dispatch. Which I'm not going to talk too much because I imagine that you also have it in your top 10. And
you guessed correctly.
Aha. That's also another film that we've talked about on the podcast, and I've said before that I really like it, but it's not. I was a tiny bit disappointed by it. It's not my favorite from Wes Anderson, but I do think it's one of his. It's kind of like Wes Anderson at the top of his form, and like he at the point where he knows his style the best. That's what I want to say.
Yeah.
And I will say I am very excited about his next film, which the only thing we know about is that like we know some of the cast members and we know the title, which I forgot, but I know sounds really cool. It's like Planet something. But yeah, so French Dispatch obviously had to put the Wes Anderson film in my list because like, of course. But number 4 is really like my top 4 is like 4 films that I really 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 like this year. So number 4 is Titan, which I actually have seen. So this movie is the second film by French director Julia Ducournau, who is honestly, I'm just in 2 films like she really made a name for herself, and it's her second film. She's already won the Palme d'Or, which is crazy. And this week I actually saw her first film, which was honestly like Titan is my number 4. I think Raw is better than Titan. Just to show.
Oh, ooh,
Like,
okay. I'll need to watch. I'll need to watch Raw pretty soon.
Honestly, like, I'm sure you'll love it. It's really good. It's very, very weird. There are some very disturbing parts, which is like what I expect from that kind of movie. Yeah. It was really good.
I like it.
Number 3 is Dune, because it just it had to be in there. When I came out of it, I thought it was gonna be my number 1 movie of the year. That's again obviously another bias because Denis Villeneuve being from Quebec and me being from Quebec, just like I, I love him because he's genuinely good, but I also love him because I really want to love him. I know that for a fact, but still, Dune is an amazing movie. I had such a good time watching it. I understand why some people wouldn't like it, but I loved it. I saw it in IMAX, and I'm so glad I did, because holy fuck, that was one hell of an experience. My number 2, I'm not gonna spend too much time talking about it because we spent so much time talking about it before on the podcast. It's Bo Burnham's Inside.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just gonna stop there because like we've said everything there was to say.
Which if you want to go watch our episode on it, it's, we have an entire
we've got an entire episode.
Yeah, entire hour where we talk about that. So
yeah, and so number 1, I've mentioned it before, and honestly, he kind of keeps switching between this one and Inside, but I kind of feel like this is my favorite film of the year. It's Lin-Manuel Miranda's Tick Tick Boom.
Okay.
That was a massive surprise. So that's another directorial debut from Lin-Manuel Miranda, who I was kind of nervous about this movie because I thought, he's made Hamilton, he's made some very good musical, but is he really going to be able to, he's good on stage, is he going to be able to be good on screen? The answer is yes. And it's, I love musical theater. I love Andrew Garfield. I love Lin-Manuel Miranda. And in general, this movie was just so much fun. And I feel as someone who aspires to become a director, just someone who wants to become a living, to live from art and from cinema and that kind of stuff. Just kind of hit close to home because this movie is about it's about Jonathan Larson, who's the guy who's mostly known for making the musical Rent, but this is him years before that when he was 30 years old, and he'd been working for the past 8 years on a musical and he was struggling to make it on Broadway and everything. And honestly, I feel like the main reason why I like this one so much is just because I relate so much to Jonathan Larson, and I also just like any musical, the soundtrack is really, really, really good. And I just loved it. That's kind of all I had to say about this one.
Well, all right. I guess that means we'll get into my top 10.
All right.
And I guess I want to say this because I want to admit that I think that this list is going to change a lot in the future because I still haven't seen Annette, Tick Tick Boom, House of Gucci, Sparks Brothers, Pig, Tragedy of Macbeth, and obviously now I have Lost Daughter on my radar. Yeah. So there's a lot I still need to see from this year, but for now this is my top 10, and I worked on this a bit this morning to make sure that I could stand behind it. So number 10 is The Green Knight, directed by David Lowery, which I think is a good movie. I think it's very much it's probably like the most modern interpretation of a fairy tale that I've seen. Like, it makes me remember movies that I would watch as a kid, not in the same way of like, it's a kids movie, because it isn't, but in the way of like, it just feels so
Right.
it has that fairy tale quality, and I think it's really good, and I'm really excited to rewatch it because I know it'll just grow on me probably next time I see it. It's also obviously a very pretty movie. But number 9 is a movie I actually was able to go out and see last night, and that is Paul Thomas Anderson's Licorice Pizza. Well,
Oh.
I don't think it's amazing. It's not my favorite Paul Thomas Anderson movie. I think it is good. There's a lot that I liked. I liked the two main characters, Gary and Alana, played by Alana Haim and Cooper Hoffman. I thought it was just really good. It had a lot of good scenes and a lot of good ideas. I'd probably want to watch it again so I could get like a better grasp on it, but it was good. And number 8 is the new, or I guess it wouldn't be the new one because he had 2 movies this year. Ridley Scott movie, The Last Duel, with
All right.
with Matt Damon, Adam Driver, and Jodie Comer, which I thought was very surprising because this movie looked boring as sin from the trailers.
Oh yeah, I remember watching the theater and thinking like, oh, this is gonna be boring.
Yeah, but I was very surprised when I went to go see it, and I actually enjoyed myself. I don't think it's like I think if I was to see it again, maybe it might lower a little bit in the ranks. It might change. I don't know, but I enjoyed it.
From what I've heard, it's the best Ridley Scott film that he made this year. I heard that it's better than House of Gucci.
I haven't seen it yet, so I can't can't give an input. But number 7 is Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings.
Whoa, really?
I had a lot of fun with this movie.
I mean, honestly, same.
Yeah, I think it's just really well done. It's probably like the best formulaic MCU movie we've had in a while. I love Simu Liu as Shang-Chi. I love Tony Leung, obviously. Tony Leung, he's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Awkwafina out here giving a great performance.
Oh, she was great.
Yeah. The only thing I would say is not great is the CG is a little much at points, but it's fine. Number 6 is a movie that you mentioned, Titan. I really enjoyed it, and I can't wait to watch it again. That's really all I had to say. I just really like it. Number 5 is Spider-Man: No Way Home. Coming forward is like obviously the best Marvel thing that they did this year, I think. Even including like the TV shows. We've talked Spider-Man to death in the last 2 episodes, so there's not really much else I have to say about it. So, people who watched the last episode, they know why I like it. But now we're getting into the top 4, which I will say something about this list. I am glad. I was a little bit worried that our lists were going to be kind of samey, but I'm kind of glad that they weren't. I'm kind of glad that we had some variation. But the top 4 are movies that, like you, are the movies that like I really, really liked, like that I love, that I would buy on that I would buy on Blu-ray if I were given the chance, or like that I would proudly be like, this is a good movie. So number 4 is Wes Anderson's French Dispatch. Like you mentioned, it is like you mentioned, it is not nearly his best movie, but being the least best Wes Anderson movie is still a really good thing. I still don't think it's his, my least favorite from his, but it's still a good movie, and I think I would probably argue and say that it was my favorite theater experience of the year. Which, I mean, it's the second time I've seen a Wes Anderson film in theaters. The last time was Isle of Dogs, but I really did enjoy being able to see this one. But number 3 is the new Pablo Larraín movie Spencer with Kristen Stewart as Princess Diana. And I think it is such a powerhouse of a movie. Like, I am so jazzed to see this again, and if she doesn't win Best Actress, I might be angry.
Yeah.
Number 2 is I was kind of okay, so I would probably say 2 and 3 might switch in the future, but with how much I love number 2, I don't know that that's going to happen. Number 2 is right. Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0, Thrice Upon a Time.
Right.
Obviously. I believe I mentioned...
Yeah, that doesn't really surprise me.
Yeah, I was about to say, I believe I mentioned this before on the podcast, but I'm a massive Evangelion fan, and I've been waiting for this movie ever since I watched the original series, and it was everything I could have wanted. And so, number 1 should come as a surprise to no one is Bo Burnham's Inside. we talked about that, obviously, so, you know.
I mean, you know. It's Bo Burnham, so of course.
It's Bo Burnham, yeah, you know.
Yeah.
But that was my top 10.
Yeah.
And I'm almost equally as excited to talk about my least favorite movies of the year.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
Please tell me.
So, I would like to get out of the way 2 honorable mentions with a very recent Netflix film.
Honorable mentions for good films or bad films?
Oh no, honorable mentions for worst. If we're talking, okay, well, actually, let me. I'll do honorable mentions for good too. Right. Honorable mentions for good. I'll give 5 because there were some good ones. We have the Suicide Squad, No Time to Die, Dune, A24's Lamb. And a film done by a YouTuber, Joel Haver, called A Simple Smash and Bash Job Gone Wrong, which was a film shot entirely on Discord during the 2021 Oscars. So it's completely done improvisationally. All the actors are through Discord screens. It's silly, but it was fun. I don't think it's anywhere close to being in the top 10, but I felt I should mention it because I like Joel a lot, and I think it was a really fun time. But now to get into the honorable mentions for the worst, I'll give 2 because these movies damn near could have made it. We have the new Adam McKay film on Netflix, Don't Look Up, which was just such a mess of a movie with really bad performances almost completely across the board, with the only one that didn't make me want to pull my brain out of my skull being Leonardo DiCaprio, because he's great. And the worst one probably being Mark Rylance as a tech CEO. I won't get into it, but I'm sure if anybody who else has seen the movie probably knows what I'm talking about.
Can I just say I watched the first 30 minutes of Don't Look Up.
Oh, you did?
And I just kind of got bored, so I didn't really watch it. But it didn't really seem like it didn't really seem bad. It just seemed kind of like it wasn't really interesting. So I don't know if it's because like a lot of stuff happens in the rest of the movie. But
a lot more stuff happens. I guess 2.5 hours. It's 2.5 hours of a movie that just continuously unravels itself until it is almost nothing near the end.
Right.
With a really baffling, I'll say this, with a really baffling I guess appearance of Timothy Chalamet in like the last 30 minutes. Like they advertised him as a main character. He's in a lot of the promotional material, but he just kind of shows up in the end and has about 15 minutes of screen time. So it's
weird.
That was definitely an experience. So okay, the other honorable mention is the new Paul Schrader movie, The Card Counter, with Oscar Isaac, Tiffany Haddish and Ty Sheridan. Just overall, it's not a good time. It was really boring. Paul Schrader still continues to be like the most baffling director in all of film, because he made movies like First Reformed and Mishima, but he also made The Card Counter and Dog Eat Dog. He also wrote Taxi Driver. Like he's been shown that he can do good stuff, but he so continuously doesn't. It's so weird.
Have you seen the Twitter account which is called Paul Schrader's Facebook page?
No. What?
It's a Facebook.
Okay,
it's a Facebook account. It's a Twitter account that shows the best posts that Paul Schrader writes on Facebook, and there's honestly there's a lot of almost shit posts that I really like, and there was one post that I saw recently that I really like, which is him talking about how good The Lost Daughter was, and how he didn't want to say it, but Maggie Gyllenhaal managed to make a better movie than him this year. And honestly, the fact that he was humble enough to say that The Lost Daughter is better than his movie, I really appreciate that.
I appreciate that too. I'll read out the pinned tweet, which is a post from Paul on November 9th, 2016. I enter unwashed into a world that disrespects me and despises my values. What in the world? Yeah. I love that. All right, so the bottom 5 of the year, going from least worst to worst. At number 5 is Godzilla vs. Kong, directed by Adam Wingard.
Okay.
This movie is extremely nothing. I went into this movie not expecting much and left with less than that. The main thing I really wanted to see. Right. The main thing I really wanted to see was I wanted to see some cool fights between Godzilla and Kong, and that was awful. They got Mecha Godzilla and did nothing with him, and it makes me really sad.
Right. He was in that film. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just a bit of a waste of a movie. Number 4 is the new James Wan film, Malignant, which was just so goofy. It's just very, very funny in all the wrong ways. And I'm one for the main I guess defense of this movie I've seen is that it's it's a campy horror film. It's well, you can be campy and be horror, but this movie is more funny than it is just being a little bit goofy. It's more, I laugh more at it than I do think that was a legitimately good horror moment. I can see where they were going with some things though, so it's not a complete lost cause. It's just it's just not good.
It's one of those movies. It's one of those movies that I heard a lot of mixed opinion on Twitter.
Yeah, I have a friend who loves it. It's one of his movies of the year. So it's wow.
It's same thing with Don't Look Up. I've heard a lot of people say that they hated it. A lot of people there's a French YouTuber that I watched that he made his own top 10 favorite movie list, and Don't Look Up was actually his number 1.
That's insane.
That's insane. Honestly,
wow.
you gotta appreciate how much different opinions you can get from a single movie.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But yeah,
but now we're getting into the actual awful movies that were a chore to sit through. And that is that is number 3. We have Space Jam: A New Legacy. Oh, there is.
Right.
It is there is. I would argue to say that this is one of the worst Hollywood produced movies made in a while, because obviously a lot of the movies I just mentioned are Hollywood produced, but not in the same way that this was. This is very much a big blockbuster type movie, and it is just so bad. Like it is there. It's so lazy too. There are several moments in this movie. Like obviously every movie uses like stock sound effects, but there were moments in this movie where I noticed sound effects that YouTubers use. Like I'm serious. Like stuff that I see in YouTube videos. Like it's so so bad. And obviously LeBron James coming out here with probably, if it weren't for another movie on this list, I would say the worst performance of the year. Because it is, obviously he's not an actor, and that's, you can't fault him for that.
Yeah.
But God, it's just not good. But at number, sitting at number...
I'm curious to know...
Oh, yeah.
I'm curious to know, how does this movie compare to the original?
Oh, okay. Well, I can actually answer that pretty well because I actually rewatched... I think the day that I was going to watch Space Jam 2, I watched both of them in succession. So Space Jam 1...
Right.
Or I rewatched Space Jam 1. Space Jam 1 is... It is not... Like, as an adult, I guess it hasn't grown up too well with me. Because I remember I loved it as a kid, but, it's not too great right now as, an adult. But at least it's like 90 minutes. You can get through it relatively painlessly. There's some really good jokes throughout the movie.
Right.
So, there's moments where I can enjoy it. But Space Jam 2 is 2 hours long and features some of the most painful scenes of the entire year. I remember the only joke that I think I enjoyed was so they're losing the game and LeBron James is like, all right, I need you guys to go out and get Michael Jordan. We need some support out here. And so they do this whole thing where like they have like a guy walking in and it's like, oh my God, he's here. And they pan the camera up like to reveal that it's Michael Jordan, but it ends up being Michael B. Jordan. And he's like, what's up, guys? I'm here. And it's like, what's up, guys? I'm here.
No.
And they're all like, and LeBron is just like, that's not the one I asked for.
Oh no.
That surprisingly got a laugh out of me because I did not expect to see Michael B. Jordan.
It's the fact that they actually got Michael B. Jordan is pretty funny, but that is such an easy pun. Like,
it's really easy, but it ends up being probably the funniest thing that happens in the movie, which is really, really unfortunate to say.
Right.
But at number 2, is Netflix's darling, The Kissing Booth 3. Oh, I already talked about how much disdain I have for the Kissing Booth movies, but just how much of a fascination I have with the fact that they exist and have reached the point that they have. But Kissing Booth 3 is actually so forgettable that last night I was talking about bad movies that came out last year with my friend, and I neglected to bring up Kissing Booth 3, even though it's one of the worst that I saw.
Right.
That's just how much I don't remember it. So, I already talked about how much I dislike this one, so I guess it's time to move on to another movie that we've discussed, and the one that everybody knew was going to be at the bottom of my list.
All right.
Number 1 is Dear Evan Hansen. The second movie. The second movie that I've ever seen in my lifetime that I've actually rated a 0 out of 10.
The other one being Slenderman, right?
Yes, Slenderman 2016.
Right.
But yeah, it's I've talked about it enough. It's bad. It deals with subject matter that it really messes up and drops the ball on. That I'm pretty sure I've heard that the stage play does much better. Ben Platt does horrendously as his own character, Evan.
That's such a shame.
Everyone else does no one else reaches the same quite peaks that Ben Platt's Evan Hansen does, but they're also not that good. So it's just
Right.
overall not that good of a movie. But that's my bottom 5, and that's I neglected to say how many movies I watched this year. As of today, it was 37. So,
That's
and I intend
pretty good.
I intend to watch at least a few more before I kind of eventually. I think I'll on my main channel. I think I'll make like a comprehensive list of like every movie ranked that I saw last year, but that won't be for a little bit. So
So we're gonna make like a comprehensive list of every movie ranked.
every movie ever.
Movie ever.
That'd be insane.
Genuinely would be impossible. Like, it would take thousands of years.
Yeah, it would take. I don't think anybody could actually do it. I don't think it could work.
It's impossible. It's not a figure of speech. It generally is not possible to do that.
Yeah, it's just not gonna ever happen. But I guess I wanted to bring up I guess because I saw during my quarantine and obviously before that, after our recording of the It's a Wonderful Life episode, I saw like a lot of movies. Like I watched a lot, especially during my quarantine. But I guess just quickly go through them all. If you
Sure.
I think I watched. I started out by watching the movie Why Him with Bryan Cranston and James Franco, and it was just about what you would expect. It's not terrible, but it's also not great. It was a decent time.
All right.
I rewatched Cronenberg's The Fly, which is one of my favorite body horror films of all time. It is so good.
Yeah, I really have to watch it.
Oh yeah, it's so good. I finally got to watching Kiki's Delivery Service from Studio Ghibli.
Nice.
Directed by Miyazaki, which was just adorable. I already mentioned Don't Look Up, and I finally watched Fight Club, directed by David Fincher.
Oh boy! All right, what'd you think?
I like it.
All
Obviously.
right.
Yeah, I don't think it's not my favorite David Fincher movie, but it is a good movie.
Sure.
It's a very, very good movie.
Well, if your favorite David Fincher movie is the Social Network, I'm fine with that.
It is my favorite.
All right, good.
But I've only seen I think 3 Fincher movies, and this one's not even the worst because that would have to go to Curious a Case of Benjamin Button. even though that's not really even that bad, it's still it's still leagues below or still leagues behind Fight Club and Social Network. But obviously I already mentioned I'm Thinking of Ending Things, which actually was the last movie I watched of 2021, which rounding out the entire year, I also counted all the short films I watched. That brought my total number of films watched in 2021 to 200 even. Which all
right.
is I think that's the most I've ever done. I'm not sure.
Yeah. That's more than me.
It's which I mean, I think I'll try and aim similarly for a similar amount of movies watched, but I guess to start out 2022, I rewatched the Raimi trilogy for this episode. I watched an Arrow video release of Sailor Suit and Machine Gun.
Oh yeah.
Which is which
I think you told me about that.
Yeah, it's a movie directed by Shinji Somai in the 1980s about a high school girl who inherits a Yakuza organization from her father. and it's just about as goofy as it sounds.
All right.
I really wish it went a little more over the top with everything because it ended up being just a tad bit boring. I really wish there was more machine gun in Sailor Suit and Machine Gun. But it's a decent time. I also finally watched Menace to Society, directed by the Hughes brothers, which was very, very good. I rewatched Bottle Rocket with some of my friends who had not seen it. And I watched. So okay, this one requires a bit of a backstory. So about a year ago, my roommate and I went to Walmart just to get some groceries, and we saw this DVD sitting in the bargain bin called Croczilla. The fact that it was called Croczilla, it caught our attention. But what caught our attention more was the fact that it included 4 bonus movies. It was a small DVD that had 5 movies on it.
What a steal!
What a steal! I mean, obviously the quality's probably not too good, and we watched Croczilla, or as it's actually known by its original Chinese name, $1 Million Crocodile. And it's obviously not good. But I just thought it was worth mentioning because it has such a strange story behind it. But
sure, why not?
I also watched Licorice Pizza, and I rewatched the second Evangelion movie. But a standout from the movies that I watched was this 2019 South Korean film called Extreme Job, which is a comedy about these very somewhat incompetent cops that try to take down a drug organization by running a chicken shop. And it is one of the funniest movies I've seen in a very long time. I highly recommend it to anybody. It's on Amazon. It's on YouTube to rent. I think it is very, very good. Right. Yeah.
Well, I am going to add that to my watch list.
It is so good. Yeah, Extreme Job. But yeah, that was all the movies I watched during my during the Christmas season, and of course my quarantine. Which to those who were wondering, it did I mentioned that I watched some of these with friends. I believe my quarantine ended after I watched Menace to Society. That was when it ended, which was the 5th. So which thankfully, COVID did not hit me quite as hard as some other people I know. But I did, I did get the characteristic loss of smell. For some reason, I kept my taste.
Oh.
I got my sense of smell back, which, thank God. I know my friend's mom, I think, still doesn't have it back, and she had it like a year ago.
That's scary.
I know, it's terrifying. No, it was really crazy because I remember I was cleaning up. I was just kind of cleaning up the apartment because it was I had time to do it. I wasn't really going anywhere, so I was cleaning up the bathroom, and I was using some of my my all-purpose cleaner, which I had I was sitting there and I was I had remembered it usually carries a bleach smell with it. I was why can't I smell that? And then I was oh, wait a minute. Ooh. Oh no! And I was immediately oh no, what happened? It's such a weird moment when it's when it finally happens to you and you just don't smell anything. It is so scary. But thankfully it came back.
Oh yeah. Thank
God. But, and the other thing I experienced was the shortness of breath. That was not very fun, but thankfully nothing too crazy happened to me during COVID, which I'm very thankful for, and I'll be getting my my booster shot sometime soon. But that was how I was last couple weeks. Did you watch anything interesting?
Right. Honestly, not a lot. Actually, It's a Wonderful Life ended up being my last movie of 2021.
Mm.
I don't know. I just didn't really feel like watching movies
Oh,
for
I
the
get it.
last week.
Yeah.
My first movie, my first letterbox thing that I put in my diary in 2022 was the Harry Potter 20th anniversary reunion.
Mm.
I've talked about this before. I'm a massive Harry Potter fan. That's a surprise to no one. And literally, like the way my new year went is like that. My New Year's Eve went was like, I celebrated with my family, and we were watching like TV, because that's what a lot of people in Quebec do, because there's a very good very good TV show specifically for New Year's, like some
Right.
and basically, like, we did that, we watched that, we celebrated New Year, just like Happy New Year and everything. And then when everyone went to bed, I went straight to my room, got on my computer, got a free trial for Crave, which is the Canadian equivalent to HBO Max, and I started watching it. And like, I mean, that's the kind of stuff that is just made for the fans. And as a fan, like, holy shit, that was so much fun. I'm so happy that this like became a thing. But yeah,
I was wondering, because I was gonna talk to you about that, because I saw that the reunion came out. I'm like, oh, I wonder if Phil's
right.
watched it yet.
Of course, I watched it. I was
I figured you did.
Yeah, I saw when it came out. Like I had to wait until I had to wait until 3 a.m. because of time zones, and
oh yeah.
So at 3 a.m., like I was refreshing the page and I saw it was there. Like, yes.
It's funny that you mentioned staying up, because I recently had to recently, as in like 2 nights ago. I don't know if you know or not, but so there's this old Newgrounds animator, Psychic Pebbles, or Zach Hadel. He made a Adult Swim show, or he finally got a show into Adult Swim called Smiling Friends, with his friend Michael Cusack. And they released the first season. Of that. They released the first season a couple nights ago, and I don't have cable, so I went and I downloaded a free trial, I got a free trial to YouTube TV, and I stayed up till 3 a.m. Or actually, I stayed up till 5, considering watching the entire season, and I just watched it all in one go. And it was the first time that I've done something like that in a very long time. Mm-hmm. But it was completely worth it, because I think it's very funny.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Yeah. But my actual first movie of 2022 is Lady Snowblood.
Ooh, you watched that?
Yeah. Dude.
Oh, I gotta watch that. I know.
Oh, you haven't seen that?
No, I have it on Criterion, but I haven't watched it yet.
Oh, all right. Because I remember we talked about that, so I thought you'd seen it. But all right, yeah, no, you have to watch that, because like, holy shit, it's really good. Like, it's really good, and I know the Criterion comes with the sequel.
Yeah,
and I'm very curious. I'm very curious to watch it, because is
it on the channel?
Yes, it is. So I'm gonna be able to watch it, but I'm just not sure like how they were able to make a sequel, because like the original is so like, I mean, it's like a conclusion that like that's where the story should end,
Right.
So I'm very excited. I'm very curious to see where they went. And I don't think I'm going to like it as much as the original, but the original, like, holy shit. Some of the best action I've ever seen. There's something that I thought was very, like, I don't know why that it really stood out to me, was the color of the blood. Because at the time, like, I feel like those movies, like, especially in the 70s, the blood, what they used to make the blood was, like, this bright red color. And there's something that's so, like, iconic about that. And you know how samurai movies are. It's like you slash someone's chest and there's so much blood that spills out. There's so much blood in samurai movies. I kind of love that. Uh,
Oh yeah, no, it's so cool. It's
yeah,
like,
but yeah, I mean, obviously, like you have to watch that. I know you're gonna love it.
I'm so excited. Yeah.
Yeah, and then that I think the night that I watched Lady Snowblood is kind of the night that I started to be like, my throat's starting to hurt a bit. Weird.
Oh.
And so I went through like a few days, like I want to say 4 days where I like it didn't do any. I spent January 3rd, 4th, and 5th doing nothing but sleeping.
Oh wow,
And
really?
oh yeah, no, I was dead. Like that, was really surprised just how much like it got me. But yeah, and I personally really don't like to watch movies when I'm sick. I really like to. I prefer to watch movies when I'm like focused. But there's something that I discovered that I do want to talk about. Is there's a show that I discovered that I think is one of the funniest shows I've ever seen. It is called The Girls Wrong Show.
I actually never heard of that.
But it's really not like, I don't think it's really that famous. It is a British show that was made by a theater company called Mischief Theater, which basically what they do is they're gonna make plays that like are gonna be like kind of like slapstick comedy, but it's gonna be like almost parodies where it's supposed to go this way, but it goes wrong. Like there's a lot of stuff that goes wrong. People forget their lines. People get hurt, and just.
I might have seen a clip of that on YouTube.
There was a clip that got very popular from their their big play called the play that goes wrong, and from the success of that play, they were able to get two Christmas special on the BBC. One that was Peter Pan, and the other one that was A Christmas Carol. And in the past few years, they made 2 seasons of The Girls Wrong Show, which every episode is a 30-minute long play. And it's just like I really love British comedies, and that is just like. I loved it so much, and I'm pretty sure you can find it all on YouTube, which is how I watched it, and so yeah, honestly, I recommend that you watch that. So there's two 1 hour long special, which are like the Christmas special, and there's I think like 10 episodes of the Girls Wrong Show,
Right.
And there's one episode in particular that I really love, which was the name of the play is 90 Degree, and as they say, the name of the play is a reference to the warm Tennessee heat, but the set designers thought that it was a reference to how the set were supposed to be. So the main
God, I think I've seen a clip of that.
The main set is 90 degrees, and they use like on their channel they've made like commentary videos to explain how they did it, and there was like this whole setup with magnets, and it's just like it's one of the craziest things I've seen. I love it so much. So yeah, no, I highly recommend that you watch that. And then as I said, I watched Raw. Then I watched The Lost Daughter. Then I watched the Sam Raimi trilogy. And then yesterday, I kind of thought, all right, 2022 is the year that I'm going to watch every movie that I've been meaning to watch for so long. Like all the big movies in my watch list that I have to watch.
Ooh, okay.
So I started with like, in my opinion, the biggest one. The one that my parents were always like, how have you never seen this one? So I watched One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Oh, I've been wanting to watch that a lot. What'd you think?
Yeah. Oh my god, that is so good. I don't know if this is my favorite Jack Nicholson performance or if it's still Jack Torrance, but like he's so good in that.
Yeah.
And it's funny how you see like so many big actors before they were famous. Like you've got Danny DeVito, you've got Christopher Lloyd, even Scatman Crothers before he was in Shining, who plays. Honestly, I prefer his character in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. He's even got more screen time, which I really like because I really like his character in this one. And yeah, so I think that's kind of what I'm going to be trying to do this year is watch like the big movies. So that was actually my first Milos Forman movie, but there's another one that I really want to see, which is Amadeus.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've been saying for so long, like I have to watch it. So I think this year is finally the year that I'm going to do that. But I think tonight, to keep that going, I'm going to be I'm going to talk about in the next episode if I actually ended up doing that, but I'm going to try to watch Goodfellas.
Ooh, Goodfellas is really good. You'll enjoy it.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Yeah. But yeah.
Something to mention. I've been keeping an eye on the timer the last 20 minutes, and
me too.
Considering the idea that we haven't cut anything out up to this point, as of about 4 minutes ago, this is the longest episode of Movie Dudes.
Yay!
Hooray!
All right. Yeah. Well, so kind of to I guess kind of to close the episode before we talk about the next week's episode and everything. Kind of a question to go into the new year. Do you have any plans or resolutions or something like that for the new year?
I have a couple. All right. Okay.
Mm.
I have one that I'll say is going to be a for sure thing, and I have another thing that I'm going to say might happen. Or I guess I'm not even going to say the other thing because I don't even know if I'll end up doing it. So I don't want to disappoint.
Fair enough.
But the big one is I just want to make more content of my own this year, of just whether that be talking about movies, talking about whatever, just something on something on my channel. It's not going to be like a very frequent thing, obviously, because I have school and stuff to get through. But I want to be more present, I guess, on the internet. Because all I've really had over the last like 6 months is this podcast and like the odd short that I'll release or something. So yeah, I'm definitely wanting to be a bit more present this year. That's really like the only New Year's resolution I'm comfortable with sharing at the moment. There is something else that I've been trying to get working for a little bit, but I'm not quite ready to share that. Not publicly, at least. Right. I'll probably tell you after the show, but
sure.
Yeah.
All right. So. For me, well, I made recently on my channel, I made an update video where I talked about stuff from 2021 and stuff that I'll do in 2022. That's actually where I announced the podcast after 5 months of doing the podcast.
I actually saw that video.
Yeah. Besides that, well, so there's everything that I said in that video, which is that I want to make more content. I want to make 2 covers a week, and I want to stream more often, and I want to be more consistent on the podcast and that kind of stuff. Besides that, it's more like, well, not personal stuff, but kind of stuff that like the general public is not gonna notice. Like I want to get better. I want to get better at what I do. I want to get better at singing, playing bass. Those are the main 2 things, but just everything else in general. There's a lot of stuff also that like stuff that I want to do, but I always end up not doing. I want to read more. I want to I don't know. I like even the usual. I want to lose weight, like that. Sure, but
of course,
that's probably not gonna happen. But I mean, let's be honest, like that's probably not gonna happen.
Yeah, that's one that I always talk about too, and it's one that I want to do because it'd be nice.
Yeah. But shit, what was there was another one that oh yeah, well, I mean, pretty basic. I want to watch more movies. Because in 2020 I watched 106 movies, and in 2021 I watched 172 movies. Ooh. So what I would want to do is I want to keep that like number going up until I can't make it go higher. So I would like to aim for 200 movies this year. And I did the math. I think if I'm able to watch 4 movies a week, I'll be good. But the main thing in terms of watching movies is that's what I want to do, and that's what also is probably going to happen. Is I want to get to 1,000 movies logged on Letterboxd. So to give some context, we're recording this on January 11th, and I'm at 885 movies. So I just need 115, which, considering that last year I watched 172, is definitely going to happen. But I'm very excited about that.
You definitely have more of a chance than I do at getting to 1,000 this year, because at the time of recording this, I am at 711. So, it'll be probably a little over a year until I reach that 1,000 mark. But we'll see. Who knows? Maybe I'll go crazy this year on the movie watching. Who knows?
Yeah, but to be fair too, is like there's a lot of films that I logged on Letterboxd that are like not exactly movies. Like there are certain anime that I like, stuff like that. And I really tried when I got my Letterboxd account, I spent like the following week just like going through the like every movies that I could think of that I'd seen, just to make that number go up. And even to this day, it's like sometimes I'm gonna think of another movie that I've seen that I forgot to put. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of a stupid thing, but I'm actually very excited to get to 1,000 movies, because like it's a milestone. It's like,
I understand it.
it when you go like on social media, there, especially like on Twitter, when people talk about Letterboxd, it does feel like there is a difference on how people see you as a cinephile when you got less and over 1,000 movies logged. Which is, to be fair, which is kind of stupid, but like, I mean, I get it.
I get it.
Yeah. But it's like, I watch that. That's like the thing that I would love to do at some point in my life, but that I just can't do, which is to watch one movie a day. Oh yeah, no,
it'll never happen for me, at least.
Yeah, it's probably the same thing for me, but I love that. There's, like, I tried to do that in 2021. I feel like that's the year where I'm gonna watch one movie a day, and I did that for almost 2 weeks, which honestly I think is already good. And then I just completely failed. But the main issue is that like sometimes I'll watch like 20 movies in a month, and then 2 movies in the following month. That's the main thing. It's like, that's why like now I've got my 4 movies a week goal. That seems like this is way more achievable.
I've already watched. I'm nearly to like a movie a day watched, I guess, because I have 10 movies watched for this year so far, and we're at the 11th day. I don't think by any means it'll get to the an equal amount of days, equal amount of movies watched. I'm certainly not going to do the movie day thing, but it'd be a fun thing to try and check and see if I actually accidentally do it. But yeah.
Hold on. What was I about to say? Oh yeah, no, there was something that like I thought was really funny. Is there's a guy a French YouTuber that I like to watch who talks about movies. He was on a podcast and I watched it, and he was talking about like for 2 years he was living in Montreal, working at a video club, like kind of like Quentin Tarantino style, and
Yeah.
for he did that for 2 years, and for 2 years he was watching 3 movies a day. Like his schedule was he would wake up, watch a movie, go to work, and then during his lunch break he'd watch another movie, and then he'd come back home, watch another movie before he went to sleep. It's like always doing that for 2 years is like crazy. I don't even know how many movies that is. That's like 700. No, that's more than
insane.
700. What am I? Hold on. 365 days times 3. So that's 1,095 movies a day.
Oh my god.
A year, I mean.
Oh my
And
god.
so that's in 2 years, that's 2,190 movies. So that's pretty insane.
Oh my god. How?
That's, you gotta oh, there's, hold on, can I think, yeah, there's a letterbox account that is called Punk, Punk, which kind of, I'm not sure entirely how real it is, because it's an account that has a massive 31,000 movies logged.
There's no way.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, it's such a weird account, because it's like watches like he watches like 5 movies a day. And what
There's
also I
just
find really
no
weird
way.
is like
That's crazy.
his average is like 2 stars,
What?
which I like. If you look at his curve, like for his ratings
Oh,
on
I
his
see,
account,
I see
it's
it. Yeah.
very low.
Oh my god.
Which I think is weird, but sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But and if you look at his log movies, like he watches very, very old movies, or he watches very recent but very shitty movies, like shitty animated movies. That is that is a very weird account.
Some fun like letterbox stuff. Some letterbox Easter
Yeah.
eggs to dig up, I guess.
I guess, yeah. Yeah, that's a weird account. But yeah, I guess that's okay. We kind of went through all we had to say. Well, for me at least. I don't know about you.
I agree.
Yeah. So I don't think we're gonna get to 3 hours for
No,
this
I don't
episode,
think
but
don't think I have it in me, but eventually we'll get there.
one day, if
One
we
day.
talk about 4 movies, then we'll get there.
Well, all right.
One day. All right. Well,
I guess now we get into next week's film,
all right.
which I'm not going to. I don't think I'm going to do the randomizer today, because I think I. What's that?
And I was just like
But because I think I already have a movie that's been on my mind a lot, the last couple weeks, and that is I think next week, we're gonna talk about American Psycho, directed by Mary Harron.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one, because like that's one that I haven't seen it, but I've seen like a lot of people talk about it, and
Yeah.
I want to say a few months ago, two of my brothers watched it, and I was like, oh well, I'm curious if you'll like it. And then when they were done, I asked them like, so what'd you think? And they both were, oh, that was horrible, that sucked. I was like, what, really? So yeah, I'm curious to see how that's, because it doesn't seem like a bad movie.
No, it's very strange. So it's very strange, and has some very like non-traditional storytelling mixed in throughout. So I can understand it. So you know,
Right.
we'll see.
All right.
But
Well,
you know, that's about it.
all right. Well, thank you very much for watching this episode of Movie Dudes. If you liked it, you can like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, the whole thing. You can also follow us on Twitter and Letterboxd and on our own YouTube channel. The link is going to be in the description. So thanks again for watching. A very late Happy New Year, and we'll see you next week to talk about American Psycho. Bye.
See you next week. Bye bye.